let's graph this, and they want us to use the completing the square and put it in that form and do transformation. So the first step to complete the square is to factor out a -2 out of both of the x terms, because you always want a leading coefficient of 1 in front of your x squared term to complete the square. So when I take a -2 out, I'll have a -3x there. That's a mistake a lot of people make. Plus 2. Now I'm going to add something here, and I'm going to subtract -2 of that same something here, because there's a -2 outside here. So what is that same something? That is so half of -3 is -3/2 squared, so this is really 9/4 that I'm putting here, and that's 9/4 that I'm putting there as well. Why did I do that? Because now this is going to factor into x minus 3/2 squared. That's how that will factor. And this, I can clean this up. This is a plus. The 2 and the 4 cancel, so that's 2 plus 9/2. 9/2 is 4.5, so 2 plus 4.5. I'll just write it like 6.5. I'll write it like that because it looks better anyway. When I'm trying to graph it, I'd rather have that than an improper fraction. So now I can graph this, and to graph it, it's 3/2 and 6.5. That's my vertex. This -2 means it's opening down, and it also means that it's opening faster down, or it's stretched vertically. So when I graph this, it will look something like this. I've got 1.5. That's right there. That's going to be my axis of symmetry. 6.5 is right up here. And now let's find our other intercepts. Well, our y-intercept is 2. You can see that at the beginning. If you plug in 0, that'll get rid of the x's, and you'll have 2. So 2 is right here. So there's one of my points. So I know one of my x-intercepts is going to be on the left over here somewhere, and one of them is going to be over here somewhere. To find that, take that equation that you have and set it equal to 0. So 0 equals -2 x minus 3/2 squared plus, now is when it's good to write it as an improper fraction. So that's 13/2. The trick that I always use is I first just multiply everything by 2 to clear the fraction. So multiplying by 2, I still have 0. Now I have -4 times x minus 3/2 squared plus 13, just easier to deal with now. Subtract 13 from both sides, divide by -4, so those become positive. Take the square root of that, plus or minus the square root of that, and then add 3/2. So 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. I just went ahead and took the square root of 4 and put that on the bottom, which means that's really the same as, well, let's leave it like that. 3/2, well, where's 3/2? 3/2 is 1.5. It's this axis of symmetry. I'm moving it positive root 13 over 2 to the right. Positive root 13 over 2. Well, root 13 is between root 9 and root 16, so it's between 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. So this is 3.5 halves basically. So half of 3.5 between. Well, I'm estimating it, but it's going to be over not very far. So did I do something wrong here? Because it seems like something doesn't make sense to me. Actually, this is more like 1.8-ish. So that does make sense because I'm going that much over this direction. So I'm going to be somewhere here. And I'm also going 1.08 in this direction. So I'm going to be somewhere over here. And so my graph looks like that ish. And there's your equation. Your x-intercepts are right here. Those are your two x-intercepts. Your y-intercept is right there. Your vertex is right there.